Alabama, a winner on the day.
Yeah.
A tale of two halves. Hunter,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
And Roll Tide. No, the game was good in the first half, right? Like the Alabama came out and they showed a completely different look than we've seen them play this year offensively. They opened up the playbook a little bit. We saw Milroe open up his passing a little bit more, and Georgia didn't really have an answer from their offense. Beck looked a little shaky. Couldn't really find his rhythm until late into the second half. And you mentioned the tale of two halves where, like, as Georgia came back into the game, I think Alabama let their foot off the gas a little bit following halftime. We saw the pass interference at the end of the half, and that could have led to some points. But they took their foot off the gas, and Georgia got back into it and led to a closer game, I think, than Alabama wanted after the start that they had.
Yeah, it definitely led to a closer game than what they wanted after the start of that first half. And I think you remember me texting you at halftime, like, if the game ends right now, what are your thoughts? And there's some things that we've said over those texts that really just that first half of football, Alabama looked like a team that could not be slain in the college football landscape. They didn't come out like that against Wisconsin, and they played well. They didn't come out like that against USF, and ultimately played well like that against the best team that they've played this season. Super impressive. Like you said in the reel, if you listen to our shorts, we're gonna see some things that we hadn't seen from Jalen Milroe. Saw that. Yeah. We're gonna see Ryan Williams go down the field. I mean, he earned the Hollywood nickname on that stage. So we saw a lot of that. But on the other side, for the offense, we didn't see as much in the second half, and it could come from one of two places, right? Like there were key stops that Georgia made, but there was some conservative play calling, it felt, in some ways, to kind of hold that lead and hold that large lead they had that put them in a spot to have to come back with 2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, it felt a lot more conservative there in the second half, and at the beginning, it was things that caught Georgia off guard. I don't think that they were really expecting to see Milroe be able to pass out of empty like he was able to do. They were really focusing on getting pressure, leaving some guys open in the middle. We saw him dump off to a lot of the tight ends, finding receivers that had some separation. And I think it caught Georgia off guard early on. So they had some adapting. So it's definitely some credit to the Georgia defense and Alabama, trying to find that rhythm in the second half. But I think a lot of it was taking the foot off the gas from a coaching standpoint. So going forward, I think it was a good learning lesson for Alabama on just because you're up, 30-3 or 28-0 at one point, like, it doesn't mean to stop. You have to keep going in the SEC because teams are solid. Carson Beck, although he played very, very poorly at the beginning of the game, he turned it back on. So if you're Alabama, you have to continue to drive offensively and show that different offense that we saw from them.
Definitely. And when I think about Alabama, like, to me, the question is, did this close win impress you? And I tell you how I feel on the other side is Alabama this year is very legit, and they're scarier than last year because, they made the playoffs last year. That was Jalen Milroe's first year starting. This is his second full year just getting started. Up until this past week, he led the nation in touchdowns. I think it's Cam Ward now, but I mean, he dominated on the run, 2 touchdowns. He dominated in the air. And if they can do that for 4 quarters with what that defense showed, how can you sit here and say there's a better team in the country when you look at who Texas played to get to number 1, Michigan? When you look at, other teams and who they've played this far, I don't know who you could say is better, and they look scarier when you have someone like Ryan Williams that just showing us things that we've never seen before. I'm not going to mention his age, but I mean, like, the coordination, just the big playability. You just pull the helmet down and you just go straight for 75 like it's no one's business. Like, this team is scary. And they passed their first test of 2 when it comes to some of the tougher games in their schedule this year with Tennessee and Missouri, and probably the hardest one.
Yeah, and teams have to keep track of both now. It was early on in the season. It was like, okay, what does Milroe's passing look like? He was really airing it out downfield. This game, he only threw 3 balls over 20 yards and connected on all of them. So they were able to spread the ball out a little bit more to in different areas of the field, and it tested Georgia. And they're going to have tests later this year, right? They play Tennessee. They're going to play Oklahoma. They're going to play Auburn. And we know how that game can always go. But
put some respect on Missouri's name, man.
I'll put some respect on Missouri's name. But from a defense, defense is facing them. I think there's some defenses out there that are going to give them a harder time. Tennessee being one of them. But looking at what they did in this game, I think that they're going to pass those tests. Defensively for Alabama, I think was where some people left the game. Like, I don't know. We kind of gave up some plays that we shouldn't have given up.
Mhm.
Carson Beck in the game threw 17 balls over 20 yards. So he was kind of heaving it downfield more than he does usually.
Yep.
And it felt like, after the game, man, we gave up a lot of those. We only gave up 5 catches on those 17 attempts.
Right.
So when they're throwing up those 50-50 balls, things happen sometimes. And it's a 50-50 ball for a reason. And that led to the Xavier Brown pick at the end of the game. You can only do it one too many times before one gets picked off. So the defense did what they needed to do. They might not have got to Carson Beck as much as they wanted to. The O-line there held him off, but they put pressure on him, made him make mistakes. He had 3 picks there and a fumble.
Yep.
So if you get a guy like him out of rhythm, you're going to be able to do that defensively later in the year against these other quarterbacks. I don't think that Brady Cook will be better against the pressure than Carson Beck was, or
No.
Nico. We saw him play against Oklahoma and make some mistakes. So this Georgia team is dangerous. This Alabama team is dangerous. So the only thing I can think is an issue from this game was the 4th down
Yep.
defense, and they gave up 5 for 5 on 4th down, so they were unable to get off the field late in the game, and that's a huge momentum. The stadium,
That's a huge momentum.
quiet.
Yeah, we saw that 4th and 2 conversion on that last drive. I mean, they were driving. They were they being Georgia were in the red zone to outside. That pick doesn't happen. They could have scored. Obvious statement, but they were in a position where they could have tied the game. And so, we'll have some thoughts on Georgia, but overall, a great performance from Alabama. Huge winner on Saturday. I would say the biggest winner on Saturday, given the game. And, last question for you, what do you think is kind of the heat, the heat check or the grade? How should Alabama fans feel right now?
I think Alabama fans should feel ecstatic, because the big question going into the season wasn't anything with any player. It was, how do we replace Nick Saban? I don't think there's ever a way to do that. But do we have a guy who can at least continue the legacy of the program? People are calling for a 3-loss season, 4-loss season, whatever it may be. Kalen DeBoer earned his right as the Alabama coach in that game, and he'll be around for a while because of that. Earned some recruits over, earned the players over, earned the fans' hearts for showing some emotion on the sideline there too. So temperature check for this game is hot.
Temperature check for this game is very hot. And is Ryan Williams the best receiver in the country?
Ryan Williams. Maybe it's two
Maybe,
freshman guys.
see.
Ohio State could compete, but I think he is the most electric for sure.
Definitely.